Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Good afternoon or evening, ladies and gents, wherever and whenever you're checking out the program. Welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily for another absolutely glorious late May day in Winnipeg. Andrew Paterson, Michael Remis with you, and we've got a big show coming up today. We are going to talk some pucks. Dave Pagnotta from the fourth period will join us. We'll hit the playoffs as well as the upcoming offseason, some of the big stories in and around the league. And Kenny Wiebe should be off the golf course in time to join us a little bit later as well for his thoughts on the Jets, Nikolaj Ehlers situation, and much more, as well as this game tonight between the Edmonton Oilers and the Dallas Stars. And of course, as we kicked off yesterday, it is Desiree Scott week on Winnipeg Sports Talk ahead of Saturday's match between Canada and Haiti, our Canadian women's national team, at Princess Auto Stadium in the Desiree Scott retirement match, honoring her incredible contributions to our women's national team and really putting Manitoba soccer on the map. There is a link in the description of this video and in the podcast description for tickets for the event. If you are in the city, it's going to be a great opportunity to see our women's national team, which I don't believe has played here in Winnipeg since 2016, but also to send off one of our greatest ambassadors and greatest athlete ever produced here from Winnipeg for Des Scott. We also do have a contest running. Go over to winnipegsportstalk.com and enter to win tickets for the event, but we're certainly hoping this will be a well-attended event to give Des the send-off that she absolutely deserves. And speaking of that, our good friend Rob Gale, now head coach of the Portland Thorns in the NWSL, is going to jump on the program with a few stories of Des's greatness and her getting started here in Winnipeg and going to the University of Manitoba for her incredible heights on an international stage, wearing the red and white. Two other bits of business to get to. I want to make sure you know before we get to. Tomorrow night is the poker tourney, everybody. If you hadn't played in one of our poker tournaments at Coolbet before, tomorrow might be a great night to change that. And for everyone that had been in our Lockshop Poker Series before, we are back at it tomorrow with an 8:30 p.m. start, Winnipeg. You can get the kids to bed and then step up and take on myself, Michael Remis. There will be $100 bounties on both of our heads for the tourney tomorrow, and it should be a lot of fun. All you ESTers out there, you're absolutely welcome to join us. If you go to my Twitter or Winnipeg Sports Talk Twitter, there's information on how to do it. But what you want to do is just go to coolbet.com, click on poker, download the poker app. I always play it on my computer. I find it the best, but there is an app if you want to do it on your phone. I would suggest a desktop. Regardless, you download that poker. Then when you go in, click on tournaments. There's a little magnifying glass. Just put in WST there. WST Poker Series will come up. Enter, join us. The cards will be dealt at 8:30 p.m. tomorrow night. Incredible response to our Gold Eyes patio party on June 19th. We announced it on yesterday's show, and we're about 50% sold already in less than 24 hours. Would love to have you join us. We've got the entire lower deck patio. We'll have tables for everybody, a bar there for everyone. And of course, you'll be able to go to Craft Beer Corner or up on the concourse to get all the great eats at the Gold Eyes. $20, taxes in. We'll get you access to the game and the wristband for the patio party. So go to winnipegsportstalk.com right now. The link is there. Count yourself in and join us June 19th at the ballpark. Looking forward to seeing you all then. And thanks to everyone that bought tickets almost immediately as we announced it yesterday. Looking forward to seeing you all down at Blue Cross Park on Thursday, June 19th. All right, we're going to get Remo in here and get this show on the road. Before that, do want to thank the sponsors that make WST happen each and every day. Of course, our partners at CoolBet, Princess Auto, Prairie Toyota Dealers, Ben Moss, as well as Rollies Transfer, St. Vital Dental Center, Canadian Club, Manitoba Battery, Aikens Lake, F Apparel, Royal Sports, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug, the Gold Eyes, Assiniboia Downs. We're back at it with live racing tonight. We'll have our picks later on. And, of course, Breezy Bend Country Club, a Why Not question of the day coming up for Non Auto Corp. And, of course, your fan feedback brought to you by fansfirst.ca. Remo, what's going on?
Feeling good, Huss. It's nice weather out. Just having a fantastic time doing that as I'm invisible. But yeah, playoff hockey. Saw Carolina get a win, and we're kind of just looking forward to the off season as well here. Counting down.
Remis broadcasting from under the table today. Oh no, he's back.
There we go.
He is back. Yeah, listen, I mean, it's going to be great. And like, how about that response for the Goldeye game? I know there'd be some people that were waiting for it, but man, we mentioned that yesterday. We sold a ton of tickets during the live show yesterday. And as people have been getting the podcast and what more, they've been jumping on it. So especially people, if you haven't been to one of our WST events, this is one of the most fun ones. Very casual. Grab some friends or come alone. We'll have a bunch of people that'll have single tickets. Be a great, great time. Hopefully this weather continues because it could not be more glorious outside right now. And a great, great turnout for all of that. So anyways, thanks to everyone that did that. We were really looking forward to it. Well, let's get to last night's action in the playoffs. Carolina not dead yet. Now, I will admit, I did expect the Panthers to win last night. I did bet the puck line, so I took an L on that. But you had to feel good for the Carolina Hurricanes to finally get that damn win in the conference finals. We're on a 15-game losing streak. Rod Brindamore's team's on an 11-game losing streak. And this team has been very, very good for a long time. Now, have they been at the level of the teams that have been playing for the Cup? Obviously not. But pretty damn close. And it would have been a real shame and frankly embarrassing for that team if they'd gotten swept again in the conference finals. And listen, they played with a lot of pride last night in a tough place to play and were full marks for that win over the Panthers.
First win in a conference final, Huss, since 2006. Got swept by Pittsburgh in 2009, swept by Boston 2019, swept by the Panthers in 2023. Imagine being swept 4 straight times you got to a conference final. Rod Brandamore saying after, nice to not to have to talk about that because we've been harping on how can this team get there all these years and not even get a single win. So credit to them, Logan Stankoven, and that's proof, Huss. If you're a smaller player, you can succeed in this league if you have the drive that he does. And I still think, long term, I think this Rantanen trade for Carolina, I think it's going to work out really well for them with Stankoven, with the picks. This year, clearly not working out as they would have hoped as they're down 3-1, but they got the win. And, you're returning home for game 5. Just got to win a game. Maybe they can make it, put some pressure here on Florida, but it just seems like we're destined for a rematch of last year, which I would really like to see, actually. So, Carolina, you got the win, Carolina. Now we're ready for the rematch.
I'm with you on that. I mean, I think, it's funny. I was just looking at CoolBet that, in the first 2 games, Carolina was a favorite at home in the series. And then even after winning game 4, there's still a slight underdog now, and Florida is a favorite, I think minus 115 to win that game tomorrow night. And listen, I mean, it's no shame in losing to the Florida Panthers. 4 teams did it last year. 2 have already gone by the wayside. Carolina is likely next. And we'll see whether the Oilers or Stars, more likely the Oilers at this point, can reverse what's happened. I did see something interesting. I think the last 3 back-to-back finals have all been won by the team that lost the year before.
Oh.
I know the Oilers lost in 83 against the Islanders. They beat them in 84. There was the Pittsburgh Penguins who lost to the Detroit Red Wings. And then they beat the Detroit Red Wings, and there's one other that I can't remember. And that'll certainly be the Oilers' plan. But they got to get past the Dallas Stars. And you know, Reem, the conference finals have not had a lot of drama. I believe every game has been a 3-goal discrepancy between the teams. Now, games like last night, was it a 3-goal game? Probably not. Still pretty close. Even game 3 between Edmonton and Dallas, it was 6-1 by the end of it. But Dallas easily could have been up a couple goals at the end of the second period. Stuart Skinner was brilliant. But this feels like Dallas playing for their playoff lives. You go down 3-1 to Edmonton, highly unlikely you're going to rattle off 3 straight. It does seem like it's time to see the best of the Dallas Stars because many of their top scorers have been very quiet, namely Mikko Rantanen in that top line. And Stuart Skinner has been better than Jake Ottinger. And if that doesn't change very quickly tonight, it could be a short series for the Dallas Stars. And of course, Skinner has had the greatest numbers ever by a goaltender in the first 4 wins in the playoffs. He's scored 1 goal against in his 4 wins. And you've got an Oiler team that's running right now. And oh, by the way, Stuart Skinner's game 4 numbers are the best in NHL history. All that being said, though, I think we're going to see more from Dallas tonight. And I think this will be, my prediction, the most closely contested game so far of either series, meaning it won't be a 3-goal game. I think it could be really tight. I wouldn't be surprised if this one went to overtime.
Yeah, a couple things. That other team back-to-back, Devils and Stars, 2000 and 2001, showed it to Waiters. And it's funny, the Panthers' domination of the Hurricanes is getting people to get back on the bandwagon that the Leafs need to run it back one more time. I don't know what they're doing, not trying to re-sign Mitch Marner, a guy at 100 points. How are you gonna replace that? So it's changing the narrative around the NHL, this Panthers domination. And how about this? Stuart Skinner, Mike Kelly putting this out. In his playoff career, goals saved above expected versus Dallas, plus 7.7. Now, this is this year and last year where he was also better than Jake Ottinger versus everyone else, minus 17.4. So I don't know what it is here about Dallas. Stuart Skinner seems to have their number. And, we saw so much Mikko Rantanen, putting up points. I think his Hintz injury, we haven't really talked about that. Certainly hurt them in the last game. And I don't know, is Roope Hintz, has he recovered from that vicious, horrific slash that was so violent from Darnell Nurse? Will he be in the lineup tonight? I haven't seen that. I think that would be a huge factor. But they, when they won, it was the power play, it was the goaltending, and sometimes it's that simple in the playoffs. We'll see what Dallas team shows up tonight. Miro Heiskanen got off to a bit of a slow start. In when he returned versus Winnipeg, and we'll see if he's making an impact in this series. So I'm reading the chat. Waiters saying he might be wrong on that Stanley Cup final. So I got to fact check.
I just pulled this up. I was like, let's just quickly go over to Wikipedia. You know what's funny? Wikipedia calls it the Stanley Cup Finals with an S.
No, it's Stanley Cup. That's not correct.
Are you sure? It says Wikipedia. Has Wikipedia ever been wrong?
Yeah.
Ever?
It's all the time. So I'll show you the proof. So this is the season where it's okay. I agree with this. Conference finals is when you're referring to both series.
There's 2 of them.
There's 2 of them. Conference final is one of them when you refer to each specific series. It is, I agree, it is Stanley Cup final, and that's what it is on the logo. But how about this? The NBA confusing everyone, calling the one series the NBA Finals, and I put out this graphic reminder, this is from 2016. I've been harping on this. It's the Stanley Cup Final and the NBA Finals. I don't know why that is, but that's what we're going with
The
here.
finals, because it's a series and there's multiple games.
But it's one series that you're referring to.
Yeah, but 7 games.
I don't know. I think the collection of those games is the final, but I guess you could. You know what? You're making a compelling argument. I still think it's final, but I can see where you're coming from.
Perfect time for a why not question of the day for Not Autocorp at Waverly and McGillivray. In the chat, maybe do a poll. Do you prefer the Stanley Cup Final, as we are told to call it, or something that I think more colloquially was called for a long time, the Stanley Cup Finals? Let us know in the chat. We look forward to getting your feedback on that. Listen, we've got Dave Pagnotta coming up in a couple minutes, and we're going to get to Nikolaj Ehlers, the upcoming free agent class. Now, we got this clip very, very late in the show yesterday. And, for all of our loyal listeners that stuck with us through the entire program, they heard this. But we said we were going to lead with this today and get into this. Because let's face it, whatever we're going to call this, there was Trotz Watch, there was Dubois drama. Now we await an Ehlers extension, hopefully. So listen, any of the insiders that report on Nikolaj Ehlers, we'll be bringing it to you ASAP. This was Chris Johnson yesterday on TSN discussing a number of free agents, but here's what he had to say specifically about Nikolaj Ehlers' situation as it pertains with the Winnipeg Jets.
A little less clear with Ehlers. I mean, I think ultimately for the Jets to keep him, they might have to extend beyond where their comfort zone is to pay him, just because of what I mentioned. The market dynamics suggest someone like him is going to have a fair number of opportunities out there. I think that there's a lot of other top teams in the league, of which Winnipeg is one, that are going to be looking for scoring help. And so whether that's, Montreal, Carolina, maybe an up-and-coming team like Chicago, go down the list. I mean, there's a lot of teams, I think, that will be in the market for dynamic playmaking forwards. And there aren't too many of them out there, especially if some of the names on this list end up signing in their current places before July 1st. So, let's revisit this in a few weeks, I'd say, with Ehlers. The Jet season has only recently ended. He went immediately over to the World Hockey Championship after that point. But, I think there's a desire for him to stay in Winnipeg on both sides of the table, but the deal has to make sense, and it's not yet clear if that's going to happen.
All right, so there's Chris Johnson. And listen, I think I'll speak for many Jet fans that when you hear someone like Chris, as respected as he is, report that there is a desire on the part of both sides to make something work, I feel pretty optimistic about it. Now, I was 40-60 to the no last week when we were just talking about the reality of the situation. This might nudge me a little more towards 50. Maybe 51-49. Now, he does make a great point, Remis, though. It might have to be extended past, quote, the comfort zone of the Winnipeg Jets, because there's absolutely no denying that the market forces at work right now that Chris referred to are definitely in the favor of Nikolaj Ehlers, considering the very light UFA class of 2025 and the fact that the salary cap is going up in the fashion that it is this year, as well as in subsequent seasons.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. Nikolaj Ehlers is so close to free agency. So at this point, if the Jets want to keep him, it's going to be the free agent price. They have a bit of advantage where they can offer him an additional year. Is that the out of their comfort zone portion, as they gave, Hellebuck and Scheifele only 7? Ehlers, you could potentially give him 8, or is it salaries? You're looking for more salary. And he says their desire to get it done, but out of their comfort zone. Does that mean, okay, they can work this out? Or does Ehlers say, yeah, I'll stay there, but you have to pay me this amount? And he doesn't seem to be budging on it. So we don't really know. We can speculate. We're going to be speculating here until July 1 or earlier if he does re-sign with the Jets before he gets to free agency. But hey, we'll take whatever nugget we can from any insider and talk about it here. And you mentioned the weak class. Well, Mitch Marner's number 1 on their UFA list. Sam Bennett is number 2. They have Tavares 3. and Ehlers 4. I would put Ehlers above Tavares. I think Sam Bennett, there's maybe some playoff bias that we're watching him play right now, and you're not watching anyone that driving his salary, especially if they do win. But when you look at the other forwards, Besser, Brock Nelson, 33, Duchesne, 34, Marchand, 37, Granlund, 33. Nikolaj Ehlers is a 29-year-old forward, coming off one of his the best seasons of his career for points, and we'll see what happens. For the Jets, if they can't re-sign him, there will be a big hole on that second line, and I have concerns on how they will replace his 63 points in 69 games from last season.
Yeah, I have major concerns. I also have concerns about what that does to the number 1 ranked power play in the league. That looks so different when Nikolaj Ehlers isn't in the lineup. So, CJ, thank you. A little bit of, I think we can take that as a positive report on the chances of Winnipeg getting it done with Nikolaj Ehlers. Certainly, if we'd heard there wasn't much of a desire to come back, you could shut the book. The Winnipeg Jets have said that they're hoping to make Nikolaj Ehlers a Jet for life, as many other Jets, including Scheifele and Connor Hellebuck, and we've just heard from Adam Lowry, hopes to be. So we'll see what happens. All right, Pagnotta's coming up in a minute. Let's get to fan feedback, brought to you by Fans First, your number 1 spot for buying and selling Winnipeg tickets on the resale market with no fees. What you see is what you pay at Fans First. And of course, Fans First will be listing Bomber tickets all season long. So if you've got an extra pair that you're looking to sell, you can use Fans First. If you're looking for some tickets or a last minute, especially for some of the more sold out games, Fans First is the place to go. First off, on the finals, and the final, if you will, plenty of support for final. Eagle eyes. I agree with Remo's logic. Go blue. I agree with Huss. I was sort of playing devil's advocate, to be honest with you. But go blue. Final IMO would be 1 game. That was sort of where I was at. Tristan Rivers Music final, Dan Jets fan final. And T. Will says finals because it is multiple games. Very split on this. Leighton Janice and Leslie Mitchell just said the final countdown. And then we get into Ehlers. Elias McCracken saying what a lot of people are saying, sign Ehlers. Now, Rain says Pagnotta said earlier it was unlikely Ehlers was staying, but Chris says the desire. Well, we'll ask Pagnotta about that coming up in just a few minutes. Lots of final countdown references by the 1980s band Europe. Snuka says sign 27, 4 years at $6 million. Snuka, that ain't even close to getting it done. Just telling you right now. I would love to know how people feel about, if they offered Nikolaj Ehlers the Scheifele Hellebuck deal. Does that get it done? I would like to think it does. I'm not sure though. Again, because of the Darth Rober says 8 by 8.5. I kind of said that yesterday. You offer the 7. As opposed to jacking up the number in the AAV, add the extra year if you have to do that. And Seabreeze, he'll be very much in demand. And Phyllis has a good development. I'm at 60-40 that he's back. Keep on, Rain, 8 by 8 for number 27. I think that's probably roughly where it ends up. And again, the Jets are the one team that can offer that 8th year. So that is something for them. All right. Let's, as I said, Pagnotta's going to join us in just a couple minutes. We just banged out fan feedback. That is brought to you by Fans First. By fans, for fans, no fees. But before we bring in Dave, I got to shout out our pals at Rollies. I know it is, this is the time where there's a lot of people making moves, selling homes, buying homes, moving your family. Well, there's a lot of stress that goes into that. If you are on the move this summer, hit up our friends at Rollies Transfer for the best in moving services. Family owned and operated, the most trusted name in the moving game here in Winnipeg. Go to their website at rollies.com, click on request an estimate, use the promo code WST for a special discount, and then simply let them know when and where you're moving and what needs to be moved, and the friendly staff at Rollies will turn it around quickly. with a great quote to guarantee you the white glove treatment that Rollies has been famous for now into their 7th decade. For all your moving needs, make it Rollies. Find out more, request an estimate today over at Rollies.com. All smiles here. Hey, good luck to everyone that qualified for the Manitoba Match Play Championship presented by St. Vital Dental Center. We'll get Dr. Terry on a little later on this week to tee it up. But St. Vital Dental Center, proud sponsor of golf in Manitoba, and of course, the go-to spot in St. Vital for decades, serving Winnipeggers and Manitobans with the best in dental services. They've got a beautiful new facility at 167 St. Anne's with free parking in the back and an incredible staff waiting to serve you, led by Dr. Terry James. All WSTers as well. Big fans of the marble race. Whether you're needing a cleanup or checkup or things like dental implants, they do it all. Find out more online at stvitaldental.ca or make an appointment to pop in and tell them the boys at WST sent you. We've got another gorgeous, steamy weekend coming up, everyone. And while May long weekend was a bust, the entire weather is great, and it's a perfect time to take advantage of the sale on Canadian Club and the new Club Pack, which features Canadian Club and Ginger Ale, CC Citrus Smash, and the Half and Half, which is Canadian whiskey along with lemonade and iced tea. I have tried them all. They get a very high rating on the Hustler Summer Drink Power Poll. So right now, to get ready for summer and another great weekend, hit your local Manitoba liquor marts. On sale now until the end of the month, the Canadian Club Pack. And hey, just before we bring in Pags, shout out to Manitoba Battery. While you're getting ready to plan, you need that boat in the water, getting the camper set up, all those things. You better make sure you've got your batteries. You can take care of that during the week so you're good to go the second you're off on work on the weekend. Manitoba Battery's there to help you. Shop local, get the best prices in town, saving like $50 a battery for your boats and your campers by shopping local and driving past the big box stores. And hey, we know you're busy. You want to get ready for the weekend? Holler at Manitoba Battery. Order online. They'll deliver those batteries to you for free anywhere inside the city of Winnipeg with any purchase over $60. It's just that easy. For all your battery needs, save money, shop local, and get the best customer service in town from Manitoba Battery. 2 Winnipeg locations, Logan Avenue, Dovercourt Drive. Order online today, manitobabattery.com. All right, let's talk some puck. Off-season, Stanley Cup Playoffs. Dave Pagnotta from the 4th period joins us now. Dave, what's going on? How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Doing well. The disappointment of the end of the Jets season listen, I think everyone, would have loved them to be playing right now. I will say it's far less stressful watching the games each and every night. That's for sure. But man, it was a great run. And I think, especially with the emotion around Game 6 with everything with Mark Scheifele, I think it put a lot of things in perspective. And I think for the most part, fans look back at an incredible step forward by this organization this year, led by not only Scott Arniel, but Captain Adam Lowry, Mark Scheifele, and more. And, listen, an overtime game to lose against a really good Dallas team. There's only going to be one team that wins. But, what's the bitterness of the way that everything went down? I think most Jet fans look back at this excited for next year in the offseason, considering what the team accomplished this season.
Yeah, I would think so. I would hope so. Based on how the season played out, and how they were ousted from the playoffs. A lot of positives came out of this one. This was a rebound reclamation season after a tough exit last year in the postseason. Obviously, no appearance to a conference final this year, but seeing the system in place work, seeing the continued development of some of the younger guys like Cole Perfetti. There's going to be a little bit of turnover and some interesting changes this offseason, I would imagine. But you look at some of the top tier teams in the National Hockey League during the regular season, and they are clearly one of them. And it's not a scenario where they're going to lose a bunch of pieces and they're going to be poised to regress next year. This is going to be a continued growth element for them. and the trajectory is still upward. So, we'll obviously wait and see kind of how things develop over the course of the next several weeks, going into the draft, going into free agency. But I got to imagine Chevy, he took some swings. So do a lot of teams. But let's see what kind of swings he takes this offseason here to continue to find the right pieces to insulate the core here moving forward.
Hey, Dave, by the way, I know that's something on our end. Remis is just fixing it up. T. Will said, is Dave okay? Is he having intestinal issues? No, that was like some frog noise that was happening because of a Bluetooth connection. Anyways, that's not on you. That is not on you
Okay.
at all. When we look back at this at the season, you mentioned Cole Perfetti, big strides ahead for him. I mean, to be honest, as much as we're going to get to Nikolaj Ehlers right away, he's sort of number one on the list of topics. And, with the unrestricted nature of his free agency, Dave, that's kind of the top on the burner. But you think about Perfetti, who has one more year to get before he's done his RFA deal. It was the emergence of Dylan Sandberg on the Jet Blue line, who was a restricted free agent that'll cost that, helped the team in massive ways, but also I think, certainly changed the window and the thinking of what a next contract for Dylan Sandberg is going to look like.
Yeah, and hopefully the audio is a little better. I mean, certainly, seeing the emergence and seeing how many minutes that he was up, especially come playoff time, was definitely a good sign. And I think from, where this team is at, looking at this group, there's possibly a little bit, more focus that could be put up front versus the back end. Obviously, they got to get, contracts and whatnot in order. And off the top of my head, I don't remember, what their cap situation is like, how much space they have, but there is a lot of flexibility there. This is it's great to see. Let's see how that translates contract-wise. But I think seeing that type of emergence and that type of growth and the responsibility that he harnessed, without question, a good sign. And, you want to keep that rolling. You want to keep that going into obviously next season. But from a checkbox kind of off-season to-do list, you almost eliminate the need to have to go out there to shore up the back end that much more because of the pieces you already have in place and controllable pieces like Sandberg. So it allows you to kind of shift towards the offensive side of things, or up front anyway, with the likelihood that Ehlers won't be back. Where do you pivot from that side, and what other areas, how else can you improve the forward core to help take those next steps? And for this club, next steps would be, at the very least, a conference final appearance next season. Okay,
so we just have to get to what you just said. Now, we did play before you came in the clip from Chris Johnson yesterday, which was, I think, soothing to many Jet fans. He reported yesterday on TSN that, he believes there is a desire from both sides. This is the quote: desire from both sides to make something work, although it may extend past the Jets' comfort zone to get things done. Listen, the one thing, there's been so much speculation about Ehlers with playing time and all these other things. The one person that we've never heard anything from on that is Ehlers, or his agent for that matter, which has been very interesting. I mean, the way that they have played, certainly being the good teammate, and he's done everything that the Jets have asked for him for.
Yep.
I really believe this is going to come down to, does he want to stay a part of this organization, a team, guys that he's very close with, on a team that just won the President's Trophy and feels like they have a window to win? Because I think we all know that there has to be a team out there that would love to have Nikolaj Ehlers, that is not in a position that the Jets are right now. They could overpay, which often happens on July 1st, and get that done. The fact that, to me, it's going to come down to whether he wants to still be here and be a part of this.
Yeah.
How do you read the tea leaves? And let's get to this point of this comfort zone. Kevin Cheveldayoff's not going to tell us what that comfort zone is, but it's pretty clear that given the UFA market, if Ehlers decides to go to July 1st, there's going to be a lot of money on the table for him.
Yeah, there will be. The pool is not deep; it's shallow, and that typically allows these types of players to excel financially, and to pounce in these types of situations. Like Brock Besser is going to get a solid deal. Ehlers will get a solid deal free agent wise. Nelson and so on and so on. Unless there's been a change of heart, and winning does change a lot. You get the President's Trophy, you improve upon last season. The trajectory, as I mentioned, is still high. Winning changes a lot, and if you feel like you want to be part of that, then competitive offer changes the mindset, understanding that we're going to be a top-tier cup contender for the duration of my contract, because you have Hellebuck signed, you have Scheifele signed, you've got all these other pieces that are locked in. I'm buying in as well. That could certainly happen, no question. So if there's been a change of heart since the end of the season, that's good news. I haven't heard that. I'm not saying, CJ's, we all hear different things. And CJ's great at what he does as well. So I certainly wouldn't put past the fact that definitely the Jets would love to keep him. And maybe there's now more of an openness on Ehlers' part. But everything I had heard leading up to going back to last offseason, excuse me, and towards the end of the regular season and around trade deadline and all that as well, was that the mindset was that he was going to explore the market and go to market. We'll see, obviously, what happens. Again, winning changes a lot. Based on the information I have had, I'd be a little bit surprised if something happens before July 1. But from Winnipeg's perspective, I think in this category, there's a 1A, 1B scenario. 1A, keep him. 1B, who are the guys that could replace him and replace him, meaning the offense and what he brings to the table within this group. So they'll continue to explore all alternatives, all options, including the possibility of keeping him around.
Yeah, listen, that is a good luck Chevy scenario if Ehlers walks, because when you think about how much he added to the power play when he was finally put on the number one unit in game number 1 by Scott Arniel this year, and just how much he drives that second line without really an established number 2 center. Listen, I don't think there's any doubt that it's a big step back. And it'll give some more opportunity to other players, absolutely. But hard to imagine the team being as at least offensively potent without Nikolaj Ehlers. Then if you have him here in the fold, and you can understand why that is top of mind of everybody in the WST chat every day when we're talking about the Jets off season. Let's just say for a moment, not that we really want to think about this, that he did come to market. Are you hearing teams that would have major interest in throwing a bag and 7 years at Nikolaj Ehlers? Are there any teams that stand out?
The extra cap space that everybody has, that extra $7.5 million, is certainly going to help a lot of teams in their pursuit to add offense within their top 6. LA, part of the mix. The New York Islanders, part of the mix, would be my expectation. Those are 2 teams that want to add offense on the wing. They're going to be looking for it. I would imagine there's going to be a lot, because again, there are a lot of teams that are going to go out there to spend money, and I think Utah is certainly going to be one of them. Utah is going to be a team that is going to have its tentacles on almost every top tier free agent, at least from an offensive side of things. Mitch Marner hits the open market, they're going to throw a bag his way. If Brock Besser's there, if Ehlers are there, and so on, they're going to comb everything to find out what the options are. Definitely, I would keep an eye on Utah. Vancouver's going to presumably lose Brock Besser. What are they going to do? Ehlers is the type of target, the type of player, that a team like the Canucks, losing an offensive guy like Besser, are going to approach and would have him on their target list. Because, again, of how shallow the free agent pool is, you're going to see a lot of teams inquire, a lot of teams throw their hat in the ring, and it's going to give players like Nick Ehlers pick of the litter, kind of. I mean, Mitch will be number one. He's going to market. He's number one. And then you've got the Besser Ehlers combo. You're looking for someone with versatility that can play both sides, that has a little speed element to him, that plays a more well-rounded game. You're looking at Nick Ehlers. If you're looking at somebody on the more offensive side of things that is, from a goal-scoring perspective, put in a position to succeed, you're maybe leaning towards a Brock Besser. And obviously, those two guys a tier lower than Mitch. Teams get silly around that time of year, and managers do. So if there's an opportunity to pay him $8-9 million more, I wouldn't be overly shocked if somebody, and maybe it's a San Jose, maybe it's an Anaheim, that they have a huge amount of cap space, and they want to lure some players in because they want to start taking the next steps in their rebuild process. For example, like Anaheim wants to get towards the postseason now after a 21, whatever it was, point improvement on last year. They're going to want to continue to improve as well, and they've got a lot of cake to kind of distribute.
Yeah, they absolutely do, and and that's one of those things. You go to a Sharks or Anaheim, and get an extra $1 million a year, but kind of reset where you are in your career as far as truly competing for a Stanley Cup. And listen, he's earned the right if he wants to go to July 1st and make that happen. And if it does, I mean, I'm with you. I think there'll be plenty of legitimate offers. And July 1 offers are different than almost any other time, and that's a good place to be if you are a Nikolaj Ehlers. While we're on the topic of free agents, we've been kicking this around the last couple of days. Sam Bennett is a bit of a unicorn when it comes to this free agent class. He's a guy that is not a prolific scorer. 55 points, I think, is his top end.
Yeah.
And then you watch the Stanley Cup playoffs, and you see the impact that he makes on a championship team that is looking at running it back. Dave, how would you categorize the interest in Sam Bennett? And what will it take, and the likelihood, I guess, at the same time, for him to leave Florida? Like a lot of guys like Reinhart last year, they love it there. They're on a great team. They're going to be rich no matter what. Now, I don't need to get 12. I'll take my 9.5 and enjoy playing for the Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
What's it going to take to get Sam Bennett out? And would a team like the Leafs look at an 8-figure deal for a Sam Bennett to come in and maybe replace a John Tavares if Marner's leaving, knowing that offensively they take a hit, but you could definitely make an argument that come the playoffs, which they're still certainly good enough to be in, they're a much more dangerous team, not to mention stealing a key player from the rival and the team that you're chasing in that division and in the East.
Yeah. I think the other element as part of this is a team like Toronto or somebody, if they're looking at Sam Bennett, we're giving you first line minutes now, more responsibility offensively. Can that 55 turn into 70-75? If Sam Bennett's a 75 regular season point getter and then doing all that stuff in the playoffs, can you justify spending $10 million a year on him? I will preface it by saying I do believe he stays in Florida. I'd be a little bit surprised if he hits the open market. I think you mentioned Reinhart, that approach. That went after their cup run, and they got a deal done before July. I think this is going in a similar path. Everything I've heard is that, again, he's likely to stay. I think Brad Marchand is likely to stay. Aaron Ekblad is the one in Florida for me in terms of their top-tier players that are hitting the market that will likely hit the market. And you're probably seeing Sam Bennett around $8 million in Florida, which is about 9.5 in Toronto, for example. If everything derails and he does hit July 1, yeah, there are going to be teams that are going to cough up 9.5. Maybe you're going 10 on it if you believe that he's going to contribute more offensively, given more ice time, and that he still can play that caliber of hockey in the postseason. Guy's not even 30 yet. So he's going to would command a lot of interest if he hits July 1. And without question, the caliber of player Toronto needs to go after stylistically to add to their group within their top six. That being said, again, I'm of the belief that he stays in South Florida.
Listen, while we're mentioning the Leafs and just, the way they went out, the way they folded in game 5 and games 5 and 7 at home against Bennett and the Panthers, I think is fresh. But again, we do come back to a team that does the same thing every year and then manages to play tight and in series and then lose in 7 over and over and over again. A Bennett type player, I think, would be number 1 on Craig Berube's wish list. We'll see about management. What about Marner and John Tavares? It sort of sounded like Marner was speaking about his time with the Leafs in a past tense when we last heard him. What are you hearing on the Marner situation? How likely is to leave and suitors for him? And at the same time, what are the chances that Tavares is back, or will he be a pretty attractive option for teams like a Winnipeg that's looking for a second-line center to come in and help a team that's already quite good, but not on a 7-year deal?
Yeah. He's going to be 35 at I think he's 35 at the start of the season. He wants to stay. John Tavares does. He wants to stay. The Leafs want to keep him, but what's the number? Is it $6 million? $5 million? Does it depend on term? If you get him, I've been saying this in locally here in Toronto for the last week. If you get him at a 2-year, $10 million deal, I think you sign up for that all day long. I don't know if it gets that to $5 million. I think it's going to be closer to 6 personally. But they want to get something done, both sides. And it sounds like they want to figure that out in short order. Now, Brad Treliving is going to meet the media on Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. And I'm sure he's going to be I'll try to ask him if I can. I'm sure somebody will beat me to it to ask the future of Tavares and Marner and Matthew Nyes as well. And I think they'll get to a deal before July with him on a 3, 4, 5-year deal. But Tavares is likely, again, depending on term, depending on money, that'll dictate what those numbers are. But you're probably looking at a 2, maybe a 3-year deal for Tavares. And it gives Toronto, and this is why they want to figure out what's going on with Mitch Marner as well. Because if you can't keep Mitch, and I think Mitch is going to July 1 without question, do you have other options here? Because Tavares can play the wing. And as he's getting up there, maybe it's almost more responsible to have him on the left side if you bring in another center for that second line to play with Willie Nylander. I think that, they're going to have some options there. And this is also something, like they looked at centers in season because they know if they need to and when they need to, they can shift Tavares over to the left side. But there's still going to be 2 forwards down in their top 6. Even if they keep John Tavares. With Mitch likely, and I say likely because I expect him to, but we're not in July yet, so I'll use that term. But with Mitch likely leaving and still having a hole on your second line, either on the left side or at center, the Leafs are going to be creative here, are going to need to get creative this offseason. The other thing that don't be surprised if we hear a little bit about is Morgan Rielly's future. He has a full no move. But in the right environment, would he consider waiving, and would the Leafs look to end that relationship to allow them to free up some money elsewhere? Or would this be another scenario of moving out, a guy like Morgan Rielly for a second line asset, either at center or on the left side? He's got term, $7.5 million, but from Toronto's side of things, I wouldn't be surprised if they explore that possibility around draft time and July 1.
What does the number look like on Marner's deal? And if it's not Toronto, who's at the front of the line to sign him? And if he left, is there a type of team? Is he looking to go to a spot where it is the opposite that he experienced in the spotlight that is Toronto?
It's not so much the spotlight that, for me, is the concern if I'm Mitch Marner. It's, as you know, fans are they can be wild. And they can be a little too aggressive and a little too personal. And some of the things I had heard over the course of the playoffs revolved around fans being a little too aggressive in their messaging towards Mitch Marner and his family. I think that has factored into the likelihood that he's walking, and the likelihood that he's going to test July 1. I'm not going to go into the details of that kind of stuff. But
that goes all the way back to his last contract negotiation, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a very similar type of behavior from certain individuals. People are a little wacko out there, and unfortunately, it's affected the personal life a little bit of Mitch, and again, the family, newborn, and all that stuff. So I think that's factored in. So it's not necessarily him being afraid of the spotlight or wanting something quieter from a fan perspective in the building and on the talk shows and on this and everything. It's more of the extracurriculars that get a little too wild out here in certain circumstances for Mitch. Unfortunately, that has occurred. But I do anticipate teams like Los Angeles, Chicago, Utah, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Vegas, to have serious interest and serious inquiries on Mitch. And they're going to be almost every team, all 31 teams are at the very least going to have some type of communication with Darren Ferris's agent on July 1. Hey, we're interested. Would he consider signing here? And then we'll get into the nitty gritty. I believe there are about 7 or 8 teams that Mitch would go to that he has interest right now in exploring. I think most of the teams I listed are on that. I think Calgary will be one of the teams that makes an inquiry. I don't know if that's an option for him. San Jose as well. I don't know if that's really an option for him. I think Chicago is somewhat intriguing. I know LA is intriguing. I know Vegas is intriguing. So we'll see kind of when we get there where that lies. Now, the Toronto could turn around as well and say, all right, Mitch, we know you're going to test. We know you're not signing here. Where are these 8 teams? Like, they had trade inquiries last offseason. And there were a short list of teams that he would have considered waving to. Obviously, he never got there. So I would circle back and say, all right, are these still the teams you're interested in? What is the list of teams? And let's see if we can do us a solid. We'll trade your rights to one of these teams. This isn't going to be a sign-and trade. It's not going to be, no team is giving up significant assets to get Mitch Marner early. Rather wait a week and, you'll sign him as a free agent while you're giving up his money on a 7-year term. But if Vegas or if LA or Chicago, if one of these teams are on his list, all right, well, do you want a week head start around draft? You want a week head start to try to sign him? Obviously, no guarantees, and I'm not going to let you talk to him now. But I'll give you the week head start. Give me a 3rd-round pick or something like that. And you'll get that extra week. I'll trade you his rights, and good luck. I could see something like that playing out around draft. There's a notion of sign and trade, this idea here, at least in Toronto. That's not going to happen. But I wouldn't be shocked if Toronto, at the very least, has an idea of where he wants to go, trades his rights to one of these teams to give them that head start to try to sign him, and they recoup some type of asset for him. That seems to be plausible as we get closer to draft time.
Does he hit 14 AAV?
I think a team would throw 14 at his way. Yep.
Hey, one other question, just because of how light this free agent class seems to be and how many potential free agents there are going to be available a year from now, how might that guide some teams that might realize they could use the help right now, but it might not be the most prudent spending of the money considering the competition for the few difference makers that are available?
I think some teams have that in mind. I think some teams are looking at this going, all right, outside of Mitch, do we really want to give up that much capital and potential flexibility next offseason. Like there are certain teams where it's not going to matter, Utah and among others, Anaheim, for example. But outside of that, would they want to cough up too much for an Ehlers or a Brock Nelson or Cal Palmieri or somebody, knowing that maybe we can utilize that next summer? Now, this was looking like a deep free agent pool until everybody re-signed everywhere. For the most part, Rantanen was going to be up there as well, and he signed his deal. We'll see kind of where that goes. I think it's a factor for some teams, not all. But, for Mitch specifically, he's going to be at the top of the list. He'll have the cream of the he will be the cream of the crop, and he'll be able to pick his options. And then, other players will go from there. Brock will get his money. Nelson, Besser. I think Ehlers will come close to it as well. What he's looking for, and then you'll see a bit of a dip. But because of the extra money this year and next, because keep in mind next year's cap. Like this year, it's going up 7.5. Next year, it's going 8.5 up. So there's that much more money that teams have to play with next summer as well.
Dave Pagnotta, the fourth period with us. Pags, just before we go, we got a big one tonight in Edmonton.
Yeah.
Dallas is on the ropes a little bit. You think the Stars can get back into this, or will you be preparing for the longest Stanley Cup flight back and forth from Miami to Edmonton like you guys all went through last year?
Oh, no. The PTSD is real. Off of that, I honestly started looking at options the other day, and I was crying a little bit inside. It's going to be rough. That 32-hour game 2 to 3 trek was not fun. I don't want to count Dallas out just yet. I still think, Edmonton's depth really picked up significantly. And that was the biggest question mark for me going into the playoffs. Will their depth pieces rise up? Because they weren't really there this season. Is Hyman going to be better? Is Bouchard going to be a little bit better? How's Evander Kane going to factor in? What's Trent Frederick going to do? Part of this mix. Is Nuge going to get going a little bit? And so on and so on and so on. How's the defense going to react without Ekholm? Et cetera, all these questions. And everybody's kind of risen up to the occasion. Stetcher's been solid on that back end. Defensively, they've really stepped up. And the offensive pieces have been spread around. Like Connor and Leon have been padding their stats, but they haven't really dominated or stolen a game exclusively yet. Because they haven't needed, they just haven't had to. There hasn't been a need for them to get to that point. Dallas, on paper, for me, much deeper. But outside of that first line in this series, they haven't done squat. Robertson needs to step up. Wyatt Johnson's on the ice for every freaking goal that Edmonton scored. Maybe fix that a little bit. Regain your offensive flair as well. Duchesne, Ben, all of these guys, Sagan to a certain extent. If those guys get rolling, and if they wake up, this is going to be a long series. If they don't, if they have the same output that they did the last couple of games, I'm booking my ticket. The Stanley Cup, regardless of who wins this Western Conference Final, starts out west. If it's another type of outing for Dallas next game. Now, I will say this: if it wasn't for Stu Skinner in that second period of the last game,
100%.
We're having a totally different conversation right now. So full marks to him for really stepping up and then keeping that going. Dallas just couldn't answer that afterwards. But they need that performance, that second period performance, right out of the gate. And if Dallas can do that and maintain that, they'll eventually break through. And, if the depth is there, then defensively, you have to restructure yourself a little bit. You don't need to put all your eggs into that first line basket to shut down Rantanen and company. It's going to be a lot more difficult. So I don't think they're out. I think they wake up at some point. I think this is a tighter game tonight and like a 3-2 kind of vibe for me, one way or the other. And, if you're an Oilers fan, you're hoping it's your side. If you're a Dallas fan, you're hoping to go back home tied 2-2.
I think we might have a little OT tonight. Little free hockey. I mean, every
wouldn't
game
be
in the
surprised.
conference finals has been a 3-goal margin or more. So it's
Yeah.
about time we got a little drama in here. Pags, great stuff as always. Fill people in on what you and the team at the fourth period have cooking as we get closer to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, no, we're going to keep zeroing in on this. We hit the road for the Stanley Cup final next week. We'll be doing every game and off day and all that fun stuff. So Dennis and I are gearing up on that one, and then also prepping for draft. Combine's coming up in a few weeks. Then we've got the draft. A lot of coverage tied to that. Trade market's going to pick up. Usually that first week of June, things start to percolate. So we'll be focusing on that as well. Trade watch list and our free agent watch list will come out next week. And then it's just 4 weeks of, or a little over, of just nonstop action between Cup, draft, free agency. So, buckle up, and Team No Sleep has been re-engaged.
Thanks for doing this, dude. We'll catch up soon. Enjoy the game tonight.
You too, buddy. See ya.
Good stuff. All right, there's Dave Pagnotta. Of course, that segment brought to you by Ben Moss. Ben Moss, proudly Canadian-owned and operated with history dating back more than 100 years. 3 locations in Winnipeg: Polo Park Shopping Center, St. Vital Center, and Kildonan Place. Committed to customer satisfaction. Check out a large selection of Canadian mined diamonds, lab-grown diamonds, and mined diamonds available with payment plans to suit your needs. For more information, check out benmoss.com. Ben Moss, because love is timeless. All right, we've got Wiebe coming up in just a minute. He's off the golf course, getting a little bit of hydration, scarfing down a little something to eat, and I know we'll be coming in hot. Before we do that, I want to thank Princess Auto for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. Of course, Princess Auto Stadium, the place to be Saturday for the Desiree Scott retirement game, Canada's women's national team, Haiti, 1 p.m. Link in the description for tickets. And a ticket contest going over at winnipegsportstalk.com. Of course, Princess Auto is the place where you'll find the best deals and the most unique and assortment of tools and equipment around. Everything you need to complete the projects on your list or start something new is at Princess Auto. Pop by and see them, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, Brandon. And, of course, you can always shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. I'm looking forward to getting out on the water at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge this summer. Cannot wait to get out there with Mark, who was our winner of the auction with the Health Sciences Center Foundation. It's going to be a lot of fun. If you're thinking about a great fly-in fishing trip where you can be on the water in less than 2 hours from the city of Winnipeg, check out aikenslake.com. You can find out availability on the 2025 fishing season, as well as options for friends trips, corporate outings, and more. And of course, you'll enjoy world-class fishing and even more world-class hospitality from the Trent family and the Aikens team. aikenslake.com for all the details, and follow at Aikens Lake on all your socials for more of what the Aikens experience is all about. And just as we bring in Kenny, don't forget, fellas, if you need to up your menswear game heading into wedding season, get on down to F Apparel at 190 Smith Street downtown. Custom suits beginning at $400, chinos, golf pants, custom shirts, both tucked and untucked styles, and the best selection of menswear accessories around. Great grad promo where 2025 grads will get a free shirt and tie with the purchase of a suit. And they always have great discounts for wedding parties when the fellas in the wedding party get their suits for the big day at F Apparel. Pop by and see them downtown, 190 Smith Street. Check them out online. Make an appointment for a fitting at F. That's EPHapparel.com. All right. Continuing Desiree Scott week, we will have Rob Gale come up and join us in a few minutes. But first, it's a visit with Ken Wiebe of the Winnipeg Free Press. And this segment's brought to you by your Prairie Toyota dealers. I want to remind you to get in and go with the Toyota Tundra. Quality that means it has the strength to take on any challenge, off-road or hauling a heavy load, backed by the peace of mind knowing it's a Toyota. With rear power windows so you can let the fresh air or let out the aroma of the burgers you had for lunch. You can take the road less traveled in comfort, room for teammates, friends, and gear. From $154 weekly for 60 months at 5.19% APR with $66.99 down. Hybrid is also available. Visit shoptoyota.ca. All right, Ken Wiebe joins us now on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Wiebe, how was the round this morning? Where were you at?
Pleasant morning with colleague Mike McIntyre over at Oakwood. Had a fun morning there.
Oakwood, Oakwood. Nice to get out
rural
to the,
action. A
Oakwood
rural guy. Got to support. Yeah, we
Now,
had a fun day for sure.
I have to ask you a quick question, and this is sort of taking us behind the scenes. But as I was finishing up with Dave, you were having a quick bite. Can I ask you what it was that you were eating?
Yeah, you bet. That was just a fruit combo plate there, Huss. Some mangoes with some mixed berries. It's summertime. Got to get into a little better shape. We got training camp in 4 months, so.
I thought that might have been some sort of a fruit salad, because I will say, being the perfectionist that Ken is, every time he took a spoon, it was one mango. I thought it was pineapple, because it was one mango. It was like literally a delineation between the one piece of one fruit and the others. And it was the same thing every time I saw it. I'm like, maybe this is something that I'm unfamiliar with. Either that, or he is a technician with getting the perfect bite. So nice work.
Thanks, buddy. I wish my technician work would have applied to the putter today. I have to tell you, Mike McIntyre almost came away with an unsanctioned Intercontinental Championship. Held him off by one stroke on the 18th hole here. So with the grand total of 43 putts today, Andrew, in my 88 stripes, it was rough out there.
That's 51% of the entire round.
That's a lot.
A lot.
Yeah, that's a lot of time on the green. Yeah,
gotta
get some work. Gotta get some time in the lab coming up for sure.
Tell you what, dude, I went out to Breezy on Sunday night, and that might be. We were saying it as we finished the round. Like, good luck getting a better day for golf this entire year.
Incredible.
Than that. I mean, right now. Oh, listen, this is such a great time to get out and golf wherever you can play for it. Let's talk some pucks right now.
Sure.
Listen, we had the report from Chris Johnson at the beginning of the show that he feels and hears that there is a desire from both teams, both sides, and Nikolaj Ehlers and the Winnipeg Jets to make something work. But he described it as, but to make it work, it may be beyond the comfort zone. It may need to extend beyond the Jets' comfort zone. We just had Dave on who said, you heard last year that the plan was to get to unrestricted free agency and see what's up. Obviously, that can change. The weekly Ehlers watch question, Ken. Are you hearing anything? And where are you at on the possibilities and what it'll take to keep Nikolaj a Jet?
Yeah, Huss, I mean, my view hasn't changed a lot since last week. I mean, mutual interest for sure. But let's also, if we're going to zoom out a little bit onto the macro, Nikolaj Ehlers' camp is only able to negotiate with one team up until July 1st, and that team is the Jets. So, again, I'm not saying that Andre Rufner is using the Jets. I do think there is mutual interest, and I've said this before, and I'll say it countless times. Nikolaj Ehlers has loved his 10 years in Winnipeg, and I think he's open to extending that stay. But if it was as easy as just finding the dollar figure, I think the two sides would have probably spent more time during the year negotiating. Now, again, every player is different. Every negotiation is different. Nikolaj clearly chose to not have this as a distraction for him or his teammates this year. He openly said he didn't want to talk about it. It would get sorted out at the end of the year. Well, now the end of the year is here, Huss. World Championship is complete. Nikolaj Ehlers went over and did an incredible job with Denmark, putting them into a good spot. Obviously making a huge impact in the quarterfinal game against Canada. I don't know this for fact, but I would assume that enough time has transpired that he's probably had his exit meeting now with Scott Arniel and Kevin Cheveldayoff. I assume it would have been done on Zoom rather than flying back over. But now, between now, May 27th and July 1st, I think the lines of communication will stay open unless they get to a point where they're not close in the negotiation. But again, I still feel the same way. I still think the door is open for a return, but I still do think that it's likely that because Nikolaj has waited this long, I think the chances are pretty good that he is going to at least explore that period where the offers are going to be coming in. Now, what he wants, only Nikolaj and his agent know that right now, Huss. I mean, as far as we know, the leaks have been very limited or minimal. Actually, obsolete for that matter, for the majority of time here. And I applaud them for that. And we know that that's the Jets, the way they prefer to do business that way, which, fine for both sides. But it makes it difficult to predict. I mean, anyone who says they're for sure, I think they're just saying that to hear their own voice. We've been around Nikolaj. I've covered his entire career. Like I said, I know he's loved it here, but I don't know that, does 1 year of power play 1 minutes translate into, I'm not sure if I want to check out something else. I mean, it's certainly possible that Nikolaj wakes up one morning and says, hey, you know what I'd love? I'd love to have a statue out there beside Ducky one day. If he has that kind of epiphany, then he can get a deal done, Huss. But, you talked about it with a lot of people. When you have the 9th most 5-on-5 minutes among the forward group, even though the coach has clearly been in your corner, I don't know that, in your big chance to cash in, given his age and experience level, that you're not going to at least listen to what some of the other offers are out there. I know you've talked about it, Huss. If he wants to win, the Jets look like they're building a winning program. But there are going to be other teams with the rising salary cap that are contenders also that may be able to offer something along those lines. Now, again, only Nikolaj knows for sure what he wants. He has 10 years of sweat equity invested in the Jets. This guy has been one of the most accountable people that we've seen during that decade. He's very hypercritical of himself, which is a great quality. He is a son of a coach. And Huss, just further to your point this week that Nikolaj Ehlers has never publicly complained about ice time. That's true, but that also doesn't mean that he wouldn't like a little bigger piece of the pie. I applaud him for not speaking out about that subject. But again, I think there may be a scenario somewhere where someone's going to, I think the best example is Carolina. Carolina has made it to another conference final, and they finally snapped their 15-game losing streak in the conference final. But for a team that doesn't score enough when they get to the conference final, I would think that Nikolaj Ehlers is going to be very appealing as someone to maybe play on a line with Sebastian Aho and either Seth Jarvis or Andrei Svechnikov. And they'll have the money to do so. We know they've tried scoring in the past. They went out and got Gensel last year. So to me, that looks like a fit. Now, they may also go after Mitch Marner. Then that would take Ehlers out of the equation, Huss. So it's tough to know who's going to offer what. I still think Utah is a team that makes sense in some regards, but it's more likely to be a team in the Eastern Conference. But again, what about Broadway, Huss? I mean, look at the Rangers. Rangers right out of the playoffs this year. I mean, Nikolaj Ehlers is kind of a Broadway blue shirts kind of guy, don't you think? I mean, I think he could fit there too. But again, how long is that rebuild going to be?
Listen, the guy
just
can
in
play
terms
anywhere.
of flash
He's a
and
great
dash
player, but he doesn't seem to be like a guy that was always like trying to get in the spotlight. I mean, far from it.
I just think he likes to be. I think he likes to be under pressure, Huss, and I think he could excel in that environment. Not everyone plays well in the bright lights of New York. Is all that I meant there.
Yeah. Okay. Listen, for sure on that. I mean, to me, I think there's something to be said for somebody, and I think if you look at good teams, there's always guys that feel like, oh, I could do a little bit more with a couple extra minutes here or there. But there's something to be said for playing on a team that won more games than any team in the National Hockey League last year. And I mean, listen, there will be guys that realize, hey, and I wouldn't begrudge him for it. This is my one chance to sign a life-changing deal. And listen, it's going to be life-changing no matter what. I mean,
for sure.
Although he's probably pretty rich already. I'm not sure how much it really does change his life, but you know what I'm saying.
For sure.
You got one shot to cash in. Are you taking 50% of what you could get to stay somewhere that you like? I mean, probably not. But if those numbers are competitive, and again, you probably don't know until you get to July 1st, which is dangerous for the Winnipeg Jets, does leaving what you've been a big part in building here and being a team that I think everyone would agree is in the mix to be very competitive next year, or starting all over? And then, of course, there's the whole grass is greener thing with someone like Patrick Laine, who left Winnipeg, and it really hasn't gone well despite the riches that he got in that contract that he signed.
For sure, Huss. But I mean, I would also use it as an example here. So let's look at Carter Verhaeghe, another guy right in the middle of the Stanley Cup playoffs. Fourth line player for the Tampa Bay Lightning, won a Stanley Cup, but wanted a little bit more. I mean, this is not apples to apples comparison, but this is a guy that went from being a Stanley Cup champion fourth liner to being a first liner on a Stanley Cup champion team, and now is making 7 times 7. So it's not just necessarily you are going for one or the other. It's not just also ran or a star team that is a contender, right? But it's just so complex right now, Huss, because of the rising cap and which teams are going to accelerate and try to level up. You got so much pressure on these teams that are non-playoff teams to become playoff teams. Again, I'm not anticipating a precipitous fall for the Jets by any stretch, but the Central Division is a meat grinder. So is the division that the Panthers and Lightning play in, and the Atlantic, right? So it's going to be interesting to see who wants to do what. But ultimately, like you said, it's up to Ehlers. I think that the door is definitely open. But again, I'm just curious to see. You'd love to be involved. You'd love to have a seat at the table and listen to how both sides are approaching this, right? I mean, you talked about the per 60 numbers versus the regular numbers, and hey, Nikolaj Ehlers needed. This is what Nikolaj Ehlers has done, Huss. In a contract year, he had one of his most productive seasons and followed it up with his best playoff season, which is exactly what you wanted. If you're Andre Rufner, you are patting Ehlers on the back because he has made your job as easy as possible, right? In terms of what you are doing, in terms of enhancing your value, whether it's with your current team or trying to get into a bidding war somewhere else and then picking the best situation that makes the most sense for you. Because we know that Ehlers' playoff record did not match his regular season record up until this year. And even for the folks that are saying, oh, well, 2 of those 5 goals are empty netters. Yeah, that's true. But guess what? There are 5 goals, and he had 4 in his first 37 playoff games going into the year, 4 in 40 before the explosion this year. For sure.
That maybe they go in a different way. Does that diminish at all the value? Listen, someone's paying these guys. I know, and I'm not saying that wouldn't be the case, but I do wonder whether just the points, the dynamic nature of players like that, whether the demand for that might be curbed a little bit because, well, playoff history for one thing, and I'm not including. I mean, listen, I think Nikolaj, really did play well when he returned to the lineup as soon as he could after being injured. But especially a guy like Marner, Marner's going to get all this money. Are teams going to feel, or do you think many GMs will feel that they're better off identifying other players, or maybe overpaying for a Sam Bennett, who might not have the offensive chops of those players, but you might want in your lineup a little more than them come this time of year?
Yeah, it's all situational. I mean, you were in the building for, Mitch Marner's biggest goal of his career, right? So that already would have started to chip away at some of the Leafs, coming up small lore for him. The other part about Marner, I think there's going to be a GM, Huss, that sees Mitch Marner sort of being a victim of his own regular season success and the pressure he puts on himself as a homegrown Leaf person, and thinks, man, if I get this guy out of that fishbowl and put him into A, Carolina, or B, Utah, maybe I'm looking at a different scenario. So for me, I think Marner's going to get paid based on the, kind of important goals he had in the best on best. And then too, hey, the good thing for Nikolaj Ehlers, he's not a banger like Sam Bennett, but he's a feisty guy, Huss. So that's why I think he fits.
He's got balls.
He fits, right? He's fought guys like Jamie Benn and again, I'm not saying, and again, the only thing kind of working against Ehlers when it comes to a team like Carolina would be that East-West nature, right? They like straight line players, but they still like guys with creativity. So, and again, you just talked about Laine. Sebastian Aho, very tight with Laine. So I'm sure that Laine is saying, if you could play on a line with Sebastian Aho, life would be pretty darn good for you in terms of upping your production. But like you said, Huss, by the time Ehlers gets to play with that 1C, perhaps for the first time extendedly in his career, he's already got the cash in the bank, basically, or the cash is coming in the bank over the course of the next 7 or 8, depending on where he signs. But still, you want to be a key contributor. You want to be a performer. So I still see both of those guys as having value. Some teams will be hesitant, Huss. And to your point, let's just use the Leafs, for example. If you're Brad Treliving, I think you do look at Sam Bennett and say, oh, I can pay Sam Bennett 8 or I can pay Mitch Marner 12 to stick around. Well, maybe I do think in the first 3 years or 4 years of that deal, I'm better off winning the Stanley Cup, or I have a better chance with Sam Bennett than with Mitch Marner, even though one guy is a 55 to 60 point guy and the other guy is an 80 to 95 point guy, Huss. Right? So I'm definitely picking up what you're throwing down. But I do think that it's a pretty thin class at the top of the cream of the crop for the UFA class.
Yeah.
So that's why basically all 32 teams will be making not all 32 will be in on Marner because it's north of 10 probably, and probably north of 12. But if you're Ehlers in that sweet spot, and let's say it's around between 8 and 9, let's just say that for now. There's a lot of teams that are potentially contenders. Not all of them have a vacancy on the top line. Those teams are more mid or kind of bubble teams, but there are some top end teams that will have A, the salary cap space, and B, they'll have the ability to make a pitch and a longer term deal to someone like Ehlers. Maybe you're not in the Bennett sweepstakes. You can be in on Ehlers as well, but it's super fascinating, Huss. And again, we haven't seen a scenario with the cap being as high as it is and is going to be, right? So, and also too, now it's going to get complicated even further because, I was thinking about this yesterday, someone was talking about the Panthers. Well, Sam Reinhart, 8.5 Huss in it. Yeah, I get it. Tax-free state in Florida, appealing place to be. But, how much glass ceiling are we going to see from whether it's Ehlers now or Kyle Connor in a summer extension? I mean, where are those numbers going in terms of the next wave, and how high are they going, and which teams are willing to pay them and which are maybe a little hesitant? It's going to be very interesting. And, it sort of extends us too. I mean, I'm not trying to turn the page here, but, it's going to be similar on the Velarde front, on the Samberg front, right? I mean, look at Slavin, another great example. Dylan Samberg is Slavin light. And for people who are confused by what we've been talking about, Dylan Samberg is kind of growing towards Jacob Slavin. Jacob Slavin is the gold standard of defensive defensemen. His day and age is Rod Langway, if you will, Huss. So what Slavin's making, but that deal was signed before the cap is going up. So if you're the agent of Samberg, you're saying, well, we want to build towards a Slavin-esque deal. Now, if you're the Jets, you'd much rather have it start with a 4.5 or a 5, but not a 6. But I mean, you also know that this guy's going to be a cornerstone on your back end for years to come. So that's where you're going to have the give and take and the, trying to find that sweet spot on both sides in terms of term and dollar value.
Ken, let me ask you this, and I've thrown this out a couple times, and I've been thinking a lot about it. If the Winnipeg Jets offered Nikolaj Ehlers the Hellebuck-Scheifele deal, 8.5 by 7. Do you think that would be enough to get a deal done before July 1st? And at the same time, do you think that's beyond the comfort zone or where the Jets would be willing to go?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. I don't know for sure, Huss. In a perfect world, I mean, his production has not matched those two players to this point. So would it? I mean, I understand where we're going.
But at the same
here.
time, I mean, we were just talking about the cap going up. And if we're talking about 8-9,
for sure.
Like the price. Who is the rapper goes? Yesterday's price is not today's price.
No, you're
that is
you're
sort
bang
of where
on.
we're at. Like that is what it's going to take.
I get it, and I mean, I think it's kind of they're separate, but they're intertwined. So definitely Kyle Connor's number is going over 8.5
for sure.
But how much over, Huss? I mean. Is it 10.5 or is it 9.5? Is it 10? Like, where is that? And maybe if you're looking at it, to me, it's got to be closer to percentage of the cap is what we're going to be looking at on those deals, right? I mean, we're even talking about that with Matthews and McDavid and all these other guys that are going to be looking at the next sort of stretch. But now, too, like I said, we're just talking about Florida. The reason that Florida is still able to do this, only one guy north of 10, right? And that's Bob, right? So all these other guys, even though Sam Reinhart, 57 goal scorer 2 years ago, 8.5. It's working for them.
I don't even know if we can compare Winnipeg to Florida because
I'm just saying as a
so
bigger picture in terms of the teams that have been able to have sustained success and being able to win. There aren't 2 or 3 $10.5 million players. Now the Oilers may become an exception here coming up because their model is now working, and all of a sudden all the depth, none of which was producing in the regular season, like you just talked about with Pagnotta. I mean, all of a sudden, all of their depth is contributing at the same time, even though it was a big question mark going into the year. And this defense core that we were looking at, thinking it was filled with holes of Swiss cheese, all of a sudden you're pulling Troy Stetcher out of the bullpen, and he's not only capable, he's playing second pairing minutes at times. So, it's going to be, just put it this way, it's a complex puzzle. Today, Huss, I would say it would be incredibly tempting. If you're Andre Rufner and that deal is presented to you, and if you're Nikolaj Ehlers and your willingness or want to stay and win try to win here, I think you would be tempted. But I think, Huss, the other part of the coin is that if the Jets are willing to offer it, how many other teams are willing to either increase the offer or hit the offer? And again, like I said, maybe he wants to go east. Who knows? Maybe, you get to the point where you're north of 30. Nick's a guy who's, he's dealt with some injuries, unfortunately for him. Huss, travel is so much easier in the East. You're setting up yourself for longer term sustained success if you're having, better travel in your division or whatever else. So again, these are things that players start to think about or agents start to think about when you're getting close to 30 or north of 30. So I think those will be considerations. So again, I think incredibly tempted. Yes. Do I think it gets it done today? I don't think so. But again, I'm also not saying they've offered it to him yet because I don't know that.
I'm going to hit you with another heater here, dude.
Great.
And this. I don't think, again,
I'm having trouble with my internet here, Huss.
Yeah. Listen, if it came down to it, let's just say they've got a pretty good idea about what it's going to cost to keep Kyle Connor, and they're committed to doing that. So they're assuming they're already budgeting for that.
Yeah.
And they're looking at their roster and they say, we're going to be able to get a deal done with Ehlers or Vilardi. If it came down to that for the Winnipeg Jets, which direction, I'm not suggesting this is the case, but theoretically, Connor stays, long-term deal, he's around, and it's Ehlers or Vilardi from a Jets perspective. Both, let's just call it similar money at a long-term deal, 7+.
Yeah, I mean, it's a coin flip in a lot of ways. Huss, two incredibly dynamic. One's a very dynamic player. One is more of a guy who's scratching the surface, right? So both guys have not reached their full potential. Let's just put it that way. Nikolaj Ehlers looks like a 80-point player who has never scored 30 goals, which is crazy to think of. But yes, he also is an 8-time 20-goal scorer, which is incredibly impressive in its own right. Gabe Vilardi, first year he played 71 games, looks like a 35, 75-point guy. So similar players, even though they get it done in a lot of different regards in terms of stylistically. But Huss, again, if we're looking at the recent, future decisions based on past decisions, Gabe Vilardi has been in a first-line role since he has been acquired. He is the guy who is a very big facilitator on the league's top power play. Now, Ehlers' production was up because he was now on the first power play, and I think he did an incredible job in the pop position in the high slot this year for a guy who had never played that position before. But since Vilardi has been here, he's been a first-line player. Ehlers has only seen time as a first-line player in limited windows. So, again, if I'm using that as my baseline, even though Ehlers is the homegrown player and has been here longer, I don't think the Jets would have to make a decision between one or the other. But if they were, they'd probably be leaning Vilardi just based on their actions, even though Ehlers probably has a higher ceiling So again, it's a tough one, Huss. I mean, you're right. You're coming in with the high heat, and I get it. But
let me go with the counterpoint on this one. And again, just for the sake of a fun debate and conversation, Vilardi's been here for 2 years. He played half of last season, and obviously, and has a history of injuries, which has to be concerning when you're signing up for that long. And then, had a really strong year this year, but then was lost at the end of the season and, did come back into the playoffs. The other thing that I'll say with Nikolaj Ehlers, and I think part of the reason why, I know they liked and they thought Vilardi was a good component. I really do believe that part of the reason why Ehlers wasn't on that first line was because Ehlers can drive that second line, even with the Vlad Nemetsnikov playing center, more than anyone else on that roster, not named Mark Scheifele or Kyle Connor. And I think they felt that the mixing up of the pieces gave them a better chance on both lines. I don't know that you can make the argument that that top line is more productive with Vilardi there than with Ehlers, especially based on what we've seen in limited times with Ehlers playing up there. So I do think there was a real team component of that decision as well. And it obviously worked for them because of the record that they had.
Yeah, I mean, Huss, I know where you're coming from. I mean, that if the Jets could have somehow bottled that, 3-week stretch of with the time where Kyle Connor was, hit kneed by Ryan Strome till December 23rd, where they blew the Bruins out of the building. In that 3-week stretch, that line was incredible. If they could have extrapolated that over 82 games with Vilardi, Ehlers, and Scheifele, of course, if that 10-game block was extrapolated over 82, and that would have been an incredible deal. But when they came back, this is what people forget. And I know this is not an argument to saying they shouldn't have tried it at longer stretches at different points. That was sort of magic in a bottle for a very small. We talk about sample size all the time, except when it's not convenient for the argument. So even starting with the first game after Christmas, which is usually a dud anyway, that magic wasn't there for a good stretch of the next 2.5, 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks until Kyle came back. So I'm here for the argument, Huss. And I'm here for, is Ehlers a more dynamic player than Gabe Vilardi? Yes, but sometimes the three most dynamic players on the line for a course of a season doesn't work because you don't have – who's doing the digging on that line when those three guys are on it? That's what we've always seen. They have 10-point games against Calgary, and then they get up against a team like LA, and then they don't touch the puck because Kopitar has it all the time, and no one is digging it out of the corner against the 6'5" trees. So, again, I'm not saying it couldn't have worked better or it shouldn't have been tried longer, but I think there's a reason they committed to Vilardi, and I do think balance is part of it, Huss. I'm okay with that argument too, but the reason Vilardi's there is because of some of the other things he does, the dirty work, the board work, the digging in the corners, the getting to the net, some of these other things that, Ehlers is an incredibly exquisite player, but he doesn't do some of the things that Vilardi does, but he also had Vilardi. If Vilardi had Ehlers' speed, maybe he wouldn't be doing those things either. I mean, so that's the great part of the debate. And here's the thing, Huss. The Jets probably need all three of those wingers if they want to be competing with Edmonton, Dallas, Carolina, Florida. So I'm here for everything that you've got to say. And I mean, what we're seeing is not only do they need those three high-end top six players, they have to upgrade their bottom six and probably the defense core if they want to be in this conversation here moving forward in terms of sustaining not only what they got to, but where they want to get to. The Jets aren't happy with 6 of 16 playoff wins, Huss. That's not where they're at. They're not out here waving banners and saying, look at us. Yes, they're proud of what they accomplished, Huss. And they needed to do what they did this year. But moving forward, you might see some resting of guys down the stretch and things like that because they're seeing the benefits from other teams that do it. But you can't just do it and then try to turn the switch on until you learned how to win in the first place. That's why, again, some folks giving me the, Jets just made the second round. It doesn't matter. This is another massive failure. Well, yeah, it's a failure in that you don't have a parade. But the things that they learned in getting to 6, even though they had 2 playoff wins in 2 years, Huss. And they were 4th in the NHL last year, tied for the Florida Panthers, the team that won the cup. So don't tell me it doesn't matter to finish 4th, because the team they were tied with won the cup. And it mattered that they had wins during the year. And Huss, Florida, they won the President's Trophy, but then lost to Tampa. But then guess what? They learned from losing to Tampa and then applied that down the road. So I'm not here for all the people saying this is just the same as those other years, because it wasn't. But the same thing is true today that was true in 2018 when they were 9 short in terms of wins, right? So no, they had
7.
9. They needed 7. Sorry. Same thing is true now that was true then. Getting those next 7 to 10 wins are tougher than getting the first 6 or 9 wins, because every team is trying to do that, and every team is trying to learn lessons and apply, and it's a copycat league and all of those things. And you're trying to build your best roster as humanly possible. And it's hard to do because everyone is competing for the same players. Everyone wants to upgrade their 2C spot. Everyone would love to have a 4th line. Look at Edmonton. Edmonton's pulling guys out of the press box. Kasperi Kapanen. Today, Victor Arvidsson is coming out of the bullpen, Huss. Victor Arvidsson used to be a perennial 20-goal scorer. He's barely in the lineup right now, right? So same thing we talked about, guys like Gustafsson and those guys coming out. Like, it's hard to build. Ben Hutton's another guy in Vegas, right? Most teams, he's in the top 6, but there he's the 7th or 8th guy. And I mean, we saw it this year with Hayden Fleury, Dylan Coghlan. Like, the Jets went 10 deep this year. And we're probably standing here saying they still got to upgrade their defense for next year, right? So it's a fascinating puzzle, and now they've got a bunch of different guys they got to sign, and then you got to find room. And it's not just now. You're look at all these for now. Then what is next? What does Cole Perfetti's next contract look like? And when are you integrating the ELC guys, right?
Oh, they got the chart on the wall. They got the chart on the wall. This is what I mean, right? The multipliers and everything happening.
You and I are talking about, I'm sure you're getting the same messages that I am. Oh, Braden Yager, when's he? Could he be the 2C next year? Well, he might be the 2C for the Moose next year, but he's smart enough and defensively conscious enough that he might try to force his way into the discussion. Now, again, I think that Braden Yager is going to need a full year or most of the year with the Moose, much like Kyle Connor did. But at some point, he's going to force his way into the discussion over the course of next season, and then what happens with Chibrikov? Now, can they sign Dmitry Reshevsky? I mean, there's lots of things there's lots of bouncing balls and, trying to get them all assembled. And, it's not like the old Christmas toy. This is not a no assembly required for the general manager here.
No, there's no doubt about that. Wiebe, great stuff as always. Hit him straight. May you have less putts on your next round.
Man.
And
we'll
look forward to talking to you next week. Take it easy, pal.
Thanks for having me, and let's get out soon, my friend. Have a great day here.
Looking forward to it. All right, there's Ken Wiebe. By the way, I know BA was mentioning, Ehlers doesn't get hurt. There's no comparison. Now, listen, this is not a knock on Velarde. I mean, he's had some really bad luck through his career, but I mean, this is Ehlers as a Jet with his totals. 72, 82, 82, 62, 71, 47. That was the shortened year. 62, 45 was the one where he did miss a significant amount of time. Last year was 82, and this year was 69. And Gabriel Velarde, in the 2 years that he's played in Winnipeg, 71 this year, missed the final 11 and the first 4 playoff games, I guess. Then obviously had that unfortunate incident in his 3rd game as a Jet, which cost him a few months, played 47 games last year. What's more concerning is the fact that the 71 this year was the most that he'd ever played in a season. And listen, that is an element of risk that you're taking when you're signing a player that's especially had back issues. And I think part of the reason why he was even on the table as part of the Dubois trade in the first place. Bottom line is, I'd love to have both of these guys, but fun conversation with Ken. All right. We are going to, we've got a few things to get to. Cool Bet Lines, ASD, Rob Gale, and don't forget, stick around, everyone, because as soon as this program is over, the season debut of CFL 110 with myself and Jeff Hamilton. So don't go anywhere at the end of today's show. And if you're listening on the podcast, make sure to check out the debut of Season 2 of CFL 110 here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Got to shout out Royal Sports. Speaking of CFL season coming, have you got your Bomber gear ready for the upcoming season? Tons of new Bomber merchandise, many exclusives you won't find anywhere else there at Royal Sports, along with incredible deals on so many shoes that are maybe left over from that tent sale. We'll do another big tent sale coming up. And everything you want to do to enjoy your summer. Water sports, soccer, softball, baseball, tons of bikes, tennis. It's all there waiting for you at Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Check them out on Instagram at Royal Sports Winnipeg for the latest merchandise drops and sale information. Big one tonight. Oilers Stars Game 4, the Western Conference Final. Boston Pizza is the place to get together with your friends for the playoffs and enjoy the amazing playoff menu featuring the Canadian All-Star Poutine, the Scoville Showdown wing flights, the Triple Pep Pizza, the Wingman Pizza, and so much more. Pop by Boston Pizza for Game 4 tonight, or get it hot and fresh to your door by ordering online at bostonpizza.com. All right, it is Des Scott week. I'm going to welcome in Rob Gale to discuss Desi's incredible contributions to the sport in the country ahead of Saturday's game. First up, though, a big cheers to our friends at Winnipeg's favorite local brewery, Little Brown Jug.
You train day in and day out, learning new techniques, approaching new concepts,
just go straight
and
into
living
Rob?
out the thrill of achieving your goals. Building a craft beer is no different. While you spend your hours on the ice, we spend ours here, brewing our trademark beer. Again, and again. Here's to pushing the status quo and challenging ourselves to build something memorable. 1919 by Little Brown Jug.
All right, is of course Des Scott week here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Saturday afternoon, 1 p.m., we celebrate the greatest career in the history of Manitoba soccer and one of the great in Canadian soccer history, as Winnipeg's own Desiree Scott plays in her final match with Canada's women's national team in her retirement match, Canada versus Haiti, 1 p.m. at Princess Auto Stadium. Winnipeg, let's get out there and support this team. And, of course, one of our greatest ambassadors in Desiree Scott. And, you know, we're bringing on guests throughout the week to talk about Des's contributions to soccer nationally, but also here in Manitoba. And I couldn't think of a better time to bring in our old pal, Rob Gale, back to Winnipeg Sports Talk, the head coach of the Portland Thorns in the NWSL and former technical director of Manitoba Soccer. Gailey, welcome back to the program, mate. It has been too long. How are you?
Good, Huss. Nice to see you, pal.
You too. Hey, first off, how are things at the new gig in Portland? You know, that knowing the Portland Thorns really because of Christine Sinclair for so long, I know that this is a very well-supported team, and seems like you've landed in a pretty nice spot right now. How are things?
Doing good, mate. We had a bit of a rough start to the season, had 5 season-ending injuries, lost global superstar in Sophia Smith, now Wilson. She is, unfortunately for us, pregnant. Fortunately for her and her family, great news, but we had 3 season-ending knee injuries alongside that. Youngest squad in the league, but we're 5th in the table. We just came back from the Champions League semi-finals, and we finished 3rd place in that competition, which was awesome. And we're only 3 points off of 2nd place, mate. So the Portland faithful, 20,000 every week, get behind this team. It's a great soccer community.
Yeah, and listen, as we talk about Desiree's contributions to soccer in Canada, she's also been a big part of the growth of the NWSL with her time in Utah and her time in Kansas City. But that spot you're in Portland, I mean, it really is a hotbed of women's soccer. You mentioned 20,000 fans. I mean, this team is supported at a very high level in a lot of ways, is the standard that a lot of other teams, including the new Northern Super League here in Canada, hopes to achieve in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, up until probably 4 or 5 years ago, and then the development of the European League and the WSL and the Champions League there, Portland was the number one women's club in the world. And support-wise, on a consistent basis, it still is. But it's a great role model. We had the Vancouver Rise come down and play us in pre-season. It's a great standard for any franchise, male or female. But certainly the women's game, it's been the more championships than anybody else. And hopefully we can continue adding to that.
Now, listen, looking ahead to the big game on Saturday with Canada and Haiti and Desiree Scott's final match, I thought it would be a perfect time to get you on. I know you've always been a huge fan of Desiree's. Who isn't? But take us back to getting the gig as the technical director for Manitoba Soccer and when Desiree Scott first came across your radar.
Yeah, gonna age myself here, but 2006. Can't believe that's 19 years ago, and landed as a technical director of Manitoba Soccer. And we'd had very few players in the national team contention. I think we had Erin McNulty, who was a goalkeeper, and now the goalie coach out of Vancouver Rise. On the male side, we hadn't had anybody since the Tony Nachita days and Tony Capasso and those guys. So to have a young player like Desi, who was, in contention for the national teams, the youth squads, it was a big incentive for all the other players. At the time, the program was heavily based out of Vancouver, and Desi had a choice to make, really, whether she was going to leave her family, and everyone who knows Des know how important a family is to her, or stay in Manitoba. And she ended up choosing the college route and not going out to the Whitecaps, which everybody said would be a detriment to her national team aspirations. And look at her now, 19 years later, one of the greatest to ever have worn the shirt. And she did it her own way, which, Des, she's forged her own path against all the odds. And yeah, from a young player there, she was a flying right winger at the time for the University of Manitoba. And now she finally got that first professional goal over in Ottawa, which is amazing. I was so pumped for her there. But what can you say about Des that hasn't already been said? What a great career.
You mentioned her time with the U of M. I was lucky enough to spend a couple of years working for Bison Sports at the time, and you're involved in working with all of the teams. And for Des to come on the radar, and we realized this isn't just a great player at the time CIS level. This was someone that had, a real possibilities of doing something special. But I mean, even at that point, Rob, as you mentioned, there was really no one for the most part coming before her. So in so many ways, Desiree Scott's a true trailblazer for the sport, regardless of sex, here for Winnipeg as a city and certainly Manitoba as a province on the national stage.
I see what you've done there with the Trailblazers, linking it back to Portland. That's why you're the best in the business, mate. But no, there's absolute trailblazer. No better word to describe her, really. And yeah, against all the odds, and if you see Des out there, people would underestimate her all her career and a diminutive stature, and they'd think, she can't make it. And she's proven time and time again, it doesn't matter where you're from. Doesn't matter your size, if you've got the heart and the ability, you can make it. And Desi is the perfect role model for that. And it's just been a pleasure to see her throughout the stages of her career. And when I was with the men's national teams, and very lucky to do one camp where I went in and did some mentorship in a camp in Mexico back in 2021, and got to work with Des and then Christine before I came here. And she's held in such high esteem by her peers, her coaches, everybody who's worked for her. She's the ultimate hype woman, but above all, she's just the best teammate, the best character. And she's been there thick and thin, 4 Olympic Games, countless appearances. And what a way to finish it at home there in Winnipeg.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We talked to Diana Matheson yesterday, and Diana said, when Des came, she'd probably say that I wasn't the most welcoming veteran, but in a matter of moments, I mean, you just spend time around Desiree Scott, regardless of the circumstance or spot, and you just can't help but feel a level of almost joy. I mean, we often, and listen, I'm not a player, but we hear the word joy mentioned so much in soccer. Like when teams are playing at an elite level and everything's clicking, there is an element to that. And when you think about Desiree Scott, I mean, she is the destroyer and was it probably wasn't a joy to play against her, but she seemed to bring so much more than just what you see on the field to probably not just games, but training, bus rides. I mean, and that's all about the person that Desiree is.
No, you're 100% right, Hassan. You've got to think joy is such a key part, and having come and now coached in the women's games is something we talk about all the time. And women like Desi, who have been the trailblazers, have not had the financial rewards, the opportunities. So the joy element of that and bringing that is what gives you longevity. And, when the programs weren't well supported and before John Herdman era and they weren't getting any success, and these guys are traveling all over the world, all over CONCACAF, difficult environments and very little reward. And now, fortunately, for the players that have come after Desi, we're standing on the shoulders. She is an absolute giant of women's football, and especially Canadians. And like you said, there's no greater ambassador of Manitoba in any sport I would challenge, because she's just been that icon, that leader, that teammate, and like you say, bringing the joy day in, day out when it hasn't been easy for her. And that's just testament to the character she is.
You mentioned the choice that she had earlier in her career to go out west or to stay home, and she stayed home. And a lot of people thought that would maybe prevent her from reaching the incredible heights that she was capable of, which she obviously has. It's very clear that this city has been incredibly important to her. She's done, working with kids sport, number of charities. When you look back, you've got incredible ties to Winnipeg. From your time with the MSA to Canada Soccer as well. What do you think the legacy of Desiree Scott will be within soccer? And it's probably, we're already seeing it right now, I'd imagine, at younger youth levels, with the imprint that and the inspiration that she gave young girls throughout this province to get involved in the sport.
Yeah, if you look at, I talked about, compare her to icons in other sports, and you've got Cindy Klassen, you've got Jonathan Tays. If you think football, as I'd call it, soccer in Manitoba, she is the name. She has achieved things that nobody else has. And she has provided that inspiration for the future generation. Like I said, when I took over at Manitoba Soccer, she was the only one with Erin McNulty in and around the national teams. In my 8 years there, we went on to place 32 players and staff across national youth teams. And we wouldn't be able to do that without Desiree Scott. The joke amongst national team coaches was, when are you going to send us a player? Gailey, when are you going to send us anybody from Manitoba? And we had Desi there as that forebearer, and for her to continue to do that and then go into the professional ranks and get over 100 national team camps. And then I'll never forget that bronze medal game, after the semi-final and the US game with Sink's hat trick. And for them to come back and win that bronze medal, they lifted the entire nation and continued to do that through the next 2 Olympic cycles and beyond. And I remember leaving her a voice message. I don't think it made a lot of sense, like most of my voice messages, but I was just in floods of tears and so pleased for Des. And that she inspires me, and she's inspired all of the young players, male and female. And she is by far our greatest export for me, by far soccer's biggest impact for the sport in Manitoba. I'm not sure when Mr. Gillingham's going to get the statue up, but I'll hopefully be there to polish the right boot when she does.
Rob Gale's with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, as you get ready for the Desiree Scott retirement match. Canada's women's national team taking on Haiti, 1 p.m., Princess Auto Stadium, Saturday afternoon. Link in the description for tickets, everybody. Rob, just from a technical aspect, because we know the person that Desiree is. We know her commitment to the city. You hear from anyone that's talked to her about the effect she has on others and her as a teammate. She did earn the nickname the Destroyer. If you could, tell us about Desiree as a player and the impact she made on the field as a 3-time Olympic medalist and an Olympic champion, what she was doing in the midfield for our Canadian women's team at their greatest heights.
Yeah, it's a funny one because it's a bit like Desi herself. It's so understated, that role and what that brings to a team, and one that she wasn't used to. Like I said, she was an attacking player, and we referenced her and Carly Colpitts and those girls in the University of Manitoba, a free scoring, free flowing attacking player. And then she got asked to sit back in that holding midfield role. And it's one of the unsung hero roles. You got to break up the opposition. You got to screen the strikers. You do a lot of the, we call it the dirtier side of the game. And Desi just breaks up the opponent, keeps the ball moving, keeps things simple. Nothing flashy, but what you get from Des is the commitment's going to be there, but the quality on the ball, the exit passing, the ability to play through the midfield and be that link, it's become a lot more pivotal since the Barcelona and Busquets era, and it's such a key component of modern football now. And Des was one of those early trailblazers, and again, doesn't get all the credit she deserves for what she brings to a team. I think there was one tackle, it might have been the second bronze medal game, and she took a tackle and was limping, and I just feared for her, and I'm like, oh no, she's done, and she pops back up and shrugs it off, and she's just been rocked, but she's out there getting into the next tackle. She'd tackle a brick wall. I used to say she'd tackle her grandmother. She does the things for the team, though, that selfless role, and always puts the team first. That's Desi, and I'm just so pleased that now the country, and especially Winnipeg, Manitoba, gets to celebrate her how she should be celebrated. And hopefully all your listeners and everybody out in the community is going to show up for her this Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think it's a huge moment for sport to welcome and celebrate a champion like Desi that we don't often have the opportunity to do so, because she's playing on the world stage, has been playing professional in the States, and now was one of the real pioneers of the Northern Super League in Ottawa. But just on top of the ability to celebrate and welcome Des back, it's a great opportunity for anybody with any stake in the sport to see our national women's soccer team, which has done so much for the sport and still has a very, very exciting roster as they, look to maintain the incredible level that was set by the Sinclairs and the Scotts.
Yeah, when was the last time we got to do that? Maybe 2016 against the USA, was it? I think Kadisha Buchanan scored a goal. We tied them 1-1. I remember working with John that week to provide male opposition from our national training center for him so they could train for that. And yeah, if you love the game of soccer, and I know so many people do, as you see Corridon when the Euros are on, or the World Cup, and all of our communities that maybe have come from, bigger and more established soccer communities, this is a great chance to go out and see the very best. And Desi is the very best, and has the very best of Canadians, but the very best of women's sports. Jessie Fleming, who plays with me, Mimi Aladu, who plays down here in Portland, they're both there. We've got a terrific squad of talented females, talented soccer players that boys, girls, mums, dads, grandmas, papas, everybody can get out and enjoy a great occasion at Princess Auto there. And I just encourage everybody to go and see it and enjoy it. And you see the development, women's sports, Northern Super League. We have to get out there and show these women the love they deserve, because for so many years they inspired us all, carried us along with them on their Olympic journey, and inspired a nation. And this is our chance just to say thank you to them, and especially to Des.
Rob, buddy, you are the best. Continued success with the Thorns out in Portland. You will be our WST NWSL team. Stay in touch. Continued success, and thanks for doing this. We'll miss you on Saturday, but I know that you will definitely be here with Desiree and all of Winnipeg in spirit at Princess Auto Stadium.
I would walk there if I could. Unfortunately, we're training and got a game to prepare for, but I'll be watching from afar. And take care, mate. Great to see you.
Portland Thorns head coach Rob Gale again Saturday, 31st, 1 p.m., the Desiree Scott retirement match. Be there, Princess Auto Stadium, 1 p.m., and you can link for tickets in the description of this video. Rob, you're the best, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate you, mate.
Appreciate Rob joining us. God, I was just reminiscing of the old Valor chants. We believe in the coach with yellow hair. Oh my God, those are good times. What a guy. Appreciate him coming on Saturday afternoon. Let's see everybody out, and make sure to go over and to the winnipegsportstalk.com page. And if you're able to make it out to the game, enter in the contest for tickets, pick up tickets, the link in below. And let's show up and show out for Des and the Canadian women's national team on Saturday afternoon. All right, CFL 110 coming up 10 minutes from right now. Remis and I have a couple of things to do first up, but don't forget our Gold Eyes game is live right now. And in about 24 hours, we sold about half the tickets. Would love to see you join us June 19th, Blue Cross Park. Go to winnipegsportstalk.com. Click on the link there for the Gold Eyes tickets. $20 all in. We've got the full lower patio deck reserved for Winnipeg Sports Talk. Done just a great job with that this year. And it should be bigger and better than it was last year. So hope to see you all there. If you haven't been out to one of our events beforehand, what are you waiting for? Got a great crew. You don't need to bring friends and family if you'd like, or come by yourself. Lots of our regulars will be popping in solo and make some great connections amongst the Winnipeg Sports Talk crew. June 19th, Thursday night, Gold Eyes with WST. The patio party is on. Get your tickets today. We got the Memorial coming up for the PGA Tour this week. Patty and I will break that down tomorrow in our Cool Bet segment. And of course, on the weekend, we'll be getting out to Jack's place and doing our Breezy Bend golf updates for the Memorial Tournament, brought to you by Breezy Bend. And of course, the match play is coming up as well this week for Manitoba golf. Matt had one of the most glorious rounds. It'll be tough to beat, frankly, with the weather that we had. No bugs on Saturday. Course is greening up nice, and it is going to be ready to go for August for the Manitoba Open. If you'd like more information on maybe making Breezy Bend your long-term golfing home for you and your family, breezybend.ca, or give our pal Corey Johnson a call over at the clubhouse. All right, Remo, let's get to the Cool Bet lines before we bang out our picks for live racing in Assiniboia Downs tonight. Dallas Stars, Edmonton Oilers tonight, Game 4. The Oilers, a -154 money line favorite. Dallas Stars, +130 dog. Total for the game is 6. Interestingly, that the number, the total is 6, and it's even money to the under, considering Stuart Skinner's insane numbers in wins, as well as his lifetime history in Game 4s. No one's been better in NHL history. If you like the Oilers to win by 2 tonight, you can't get +155 on this. Remo, if you click on the exclusives and you go down to Winnipeg Sports Talk Parlay, I've been saying all day, I've got a feeling we might get overtime. Well, guess what? Jake gave us a nice little boost. It's +340 at CoolBet, +320 at a lot of other books. If you think we might get overtime tonight in the exclusives under Winnipeg Sports Talk, they've boosted it up to +375. I'm on it. If you want to ride with me, don't do it in the regular spot. Get the added boost, +375 for overtime tonight in Stars Dallas. Be a fun thing to cheer for, and maybe we'll get some free hockey and cash a bet. Now, if you go to the combo cards, we've got the ride with Huss. I'm on the Indiana Pacers to win tonight at home. They're a -135 money line favorite. Oh, it's now to -143. And I like McDavid to score. That was +298. It's boosted to +364. So if you like the Pacers and McDavid goal, you can ride with me on that one as well. That is up in the combo cards. And as I mentioned, I do like McDavid to score tonight, +134. And here's another interesting one that we were talking about. Draisaitl had no shots on goal in Game 3. Hadn't happened since the 4th of November. I think he's shooting a lot tonight. Leon Draisaitl over 3.5 shots, +119. I'm on that as well. So a few of our favorite bets for tonight. Like the Pacers, we're going to put that with a McDavid goal in the combo cards. Let's cheer for a little OT tonight at plus 375 in the exclusives. Of course, we've got Major League Baseball. Odds for the Memorial up. Pat and I will get to our favorite picks on that tomorrow in the Cool Bet segment. French Open, WNBA, and all those CFL futures are up as well. Make sure to check that out. We'll touch on those in a minute coming up on CFL 110 before the final picks are made a week from today. Haven't played a Cool Bet? Use the promo code WST for a 100% bonus on your first deposit. And don't forget, tomorrow, poker, 8:30 p.m. Check our socials for more details if you haven't played before. Otherwise, just go in, search WST in tournaments. You'll see it. Get in there. We'll be waiting for you. $100 bounty on my head and $100 bounty on Michael Remis's head tomorrow night. All right, Reem, before CFL 110 starts, we got to get to some picks for the track tonight. Assiniboia Downs live racing tonight and tomorrow night. And I'm finally feeling a little bit better. I got off the schneid with a couple winners on Wednesday, and now I am ready to roll. You want me to roll with my picks, then you can go with yours?
Yeah, just roll through this quickly as we get to CFL 110.
Perfect. $4 tonight on War Echo in race number 1 to win. That's the favorite. I'm going to do an exactor box in race number 4. 4-6, Maybella and I Love My Life. And then I'm going 2 triactor boxes. Race number 6, I'm going 1-4-8. I believe that's the AI Smart picks. Black Tekka, Market King, and Starship Chewbacca. And then I'm taking a bit of a swing in the final race. Race 7, 9, and 10. Sneaky Situation, Mineral Rights, Midnight Candy Storm for a total of $20. That's where I'm rolling tonight. What about you?
Okay, I'm on similar but actually different ones, but similar races. Race 4, 4-7, Exacta, Maybella, and Prairie Drifter. You had a Maybella and I Love My Life there. Race 5, to win. 7, Big Stretch. Race 6, trifecta box. 1-4-6, Black Tekka, Market King, and Spire. I think you had Starship Chewbacca, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, so a bit different. And then race 7, you did not have this one in your 3, but I do. Flint Lock to win. So big race there. Race 7, 10.
Yeah, exactly.
10
I always like to save the triactor for the final race, just with all the horses in it. Free parking, free admission. Assiniboia announced tonight, 7:30 post time. If you're planning on going out for a future race, make an appointment, make a reservation in the dining room, and check out that incredible world-class prime rib buffet. Great, very busy show today, busy day today for us, Remo, because CFL 110 is coming up right now.
Yeah, right now, and it'll be on podcast as well for all the podcast listeners who've made it this far. So excited to get that underway as, hey, CFL season, the Bombers don't play week 1, but week 1 is fast approaching.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll make our picks against the spread for every game this year starting next week, as well as our favorite futures, but we're going to hit that. And one big question for every CFL team heading into next week's CFL kickoff. Thanks to Ken Wiebe, Rob Gale, Dave Pagnotta for joining us today, and all the sponsors that make WST happen. Stay tuned. We're going right into the season premiere of CFL 110 next here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 right here on WST.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.